Okay, now that we've set up our dynamic analysis using Burp Suite and using objection as well, I also want to show you some options using MobSF. As I previously mentioned with MobSF, the tool is great for doing a static analysis, but it can also do a dynamic analysis. Now in this video, we're going to have to do quite a bit of setup at the very beginning, so it's going to be a bit long just for your information, but I will try to be as complete as possible in the setup of the dynamic analyzer because it does take some technical configuration before it gets working. So to find out how to set up the dynamic analysis features, you can go to the wiki page here off of GitHub and go to their documentation. Then we can go to configuring the dynamic analyzer here. And let me zoom in a bit so you can see a little bit better. You can see they have multiple options here, like for the Genymotion Android setup, and they also have the Android Studio emulator. And if you're looking at doing this in the cloud as well, there's also documentation for the Genymotion cloud emulators, right? For this case, I am going to use the Android Studio emulators. Now here in the first section, it says that you cannot start AVD from Android Studio. So how we've been starting our emulators throughout this course has been in Android Studio. We've been pressing the play button here, right? But for the dynamic analysis with MobSF, we cannot do that. We actually need to start the AVDs directly from the command line with a writable file system using the emulator command. And how we can actually do this is that we need to add the emulator executable to our path, and these are the paths for Mac, Linux, and Windows. So if you're going to have to add this to your path for Mac, the commands will be different. You're going to have to learn how to add something to your path variables. For Linux, it's going to be very similar to Mac, and for Windows, I will show that one here. So how you would add this to your path is you would go to like the Windows Start menu, type in environment into the search bar, and you can click Edit the System Environment Variables here. This will pull up a window that looks like this, and you're going to click Environment Variables. Then you're going to go to Path. This is the one that we need to set up. And here I actually have the file path already located, and it's at c:/users_errand. Whatever your username would be for your Windows system, you would replace that there instead of my name. App data, local, Android, SDK, emulator. And that whole path is also documented right here in the documentation, right? So this is what you would add into your path. So you can just double click here, put that path in there, click OK. In my case, it's already set up. So I'm going to click OK, OK. And now to make sure that this tool is working, I'm going to open a command prompt. And we can just type in the command emulator. And so this is how we know that the command is working, because it says no AVD specified. And what we need to do for the dynamic analysis with MobSF is we need to have an emulator without the Google Play Store installed. So if I go back to my AVD manager in Android Studio, you can see I have a few options here. I have like the Nexus 5 with API 23, 21, and 19. These ones without the Play Store icon are the ones that you could install and use with MobSF dynamic analysis. The ones with the Play Store installed, like this Play Store puller, would not work with this tool, okay? And if you need to make a new one without the Play Store, just remember you can go to Create Virtual Device, you can select your device type, and you can go to the x86 images here and get any of the ones here that have Google API or nothing next to it. Okay, so now we need to actually list the various emulators we have, and according to our documentation here, we need to do the command emulator space -list -avds. So I'm going to do that here. Emulator -list avds. And we can see our emulators are all named here. In my case, I am going to use this one, Nexus 5 API 23. The MobSF Dynamic Analyzer supports anything up to API 28, so just keep that in mind when you're testing applications in case they have no support for anything under a certain API version. Okay, and to start our emulator, if we scroll down a bit more through the documentation, this is the command that we're going to have to use. It's going to be emulator space -avd, the name of our AVD, which we have in the command prompt right now, and then a dash writable dash system and no snapshot. This is what we need to follow for MobSF to actually make changes to our emulator as it's running. So I'm going to copy this command here. Or just do an emulator. -avd. This is to start the emulator. Then I can copy this name out of here, or I can type it in if my copy and paste is not working. API_23, and then we need to do a -writable -system space and then a -no, and the last word is snapshot. So -no snapshot. And it's going to start our emulator here by using the emulator command as opposed to using Android Studio. And once our emulator starts up, now we can actually start MobSF from the command line. So I'm going to open another command prompt here, drag this over, and I'm going to go to my MobSF directory. If you need to install MobSF, make sure you go back to the static analysis video with MobSF. I explain how you can install this tool from there. On Windows here, I'm going to do a run.bat. This is how I'm going to start up MobSF. It's going to take a second to start, and then it will be available on port 8000 on localhost, which I already have my web browser set up here. So here we go, port 8000 localhost. Now the first thing you need to do, if you have not loaded the application that you're going to take a look at with your dynamic analysis, you need to upload it here. Now in my case, to make this a little bit more interesting, I'm actually going to use the Joanne Fabrics APK that I'll be using in the next video as well for our kind of more manual dynamic analysis. So you need to upload whatever application it is that you're taking a look at. You can look at the static report in MobSF, or you can just click the dynamic report at this point. So I'm going to click the dynamic report, and this is going to work because I already have the emulator up here. You might need to put in a pin if it requires you to. So I'm going to click dynamic report here in MobSF. Looks like it doesn't want to here, so I'm going to click static report and regenerate the static report. It might take a minute to generate. Okay, so here's the static report, and then I need to click start dynamic analysis here, and now it should bring me into the dynamic analysis section. Might take a few minutes to get to that screen. Okay, so here we are on the MobSF dynamic analysis screen. And what this has actually done, if you look into the command prompt here, it's going to show you all the stuff it did. So it like installed the MobSF root CA. It set the proxy to port 1337. It started the clipboard monitor. It set a global proxy for the Android virtual machine. So MobSF is actually able to intercept our traffic and do some FRIDA instrumentation as well. And what we can do here, there's a bunch of different things that we can do. We can do this button like show screen. This could be useful if you're using an emulator maybe on a different system and you're using MobSF, you know, as like a cloud website that you're reaching out to, so you can actually show the screen of the phone. In this case, we actually have the emulator here locally, so we do not need to show the screen here. We can remove the MobSF root CA if we wanted to. Something awesome that we can do is actually start the exported activity tester. So if we click this, it's going to start running our phone. It's going to start going to every single exported activity that is available on the application. So you can see there it brought up like the onboarding activity, any other exported activity it's going to try to bring up here. We can actually watch this just go through it automatically from the app's perspective. So you saw there that it only brought up a few activities. It looks like a little onboarding activity and just the Joanne splash screen there. We can also click like the start activity tester here. It's going to start trying to navigate through the application and see what it can get through to from other areas of the application. It's just going to keep on running through these, so this could be just interesting, something to watch for a few minutes and see what screens it can get through automatically, right? I don't think it's going to necessarily bring anything too interesting up here, but we'll see what it brings. Oh, looks like the application actually crashed there. It's going to keep on trying to bring up some different activities. Most of it looks like, oh, yep, there we go, some kind of a picture function that might be exported. So it's pretty much just trying to walk through the application and show you all the various activities that you might be able to get to from other activities, right? Okay, now the activity testing is completed. Didn't necessarily find anything too interesting there, but it is something just useful to use to see if anything does come up. For example, if we were doing this with the Android application, we would actually find some flags by doing that, right? Because we had some exported activities that had sensitive information. Okay, I can also, if I'm just like navigating through the app, I can use this take screenshot button. So I could click like through here and just skip everything for now. If I want to take a screenshot, okay, sure. So I can just like take a screenshot of the app, and this will actually go out into the report. So if I was like scrolling through the application, found something interesting, I could always take a screenshot and it will record that for me, right? We can also click this logcat stream button here, and this will actually start, printing out the entire logcat here. We don't have to go back to Android Studio to see that. You can also stop streaming the logcat if you ever want to stop it and actually take a look here. If you think like something sensitive was put into the logs, and you can also start it up again. So maybe if you're navigating through the application, you think something might be sensitive, you can start and stop the stream as you want. Okay, I'm going to stop that streaming, go back to our dynamic analyzer here. There's also a ton of different options down here. You can do like capture strings here. You can also click this start instrumentation. You can also do the Frida live logs here. I'm going to click start instrumentation and do the Frida live logs. It's going to refresh the data every 10 seconds. Maybe as we're like navigating through here, I can start searching on products and it might start refreshing with like, here we go. So you can see that some certificate pinning might have been bypassed here. So it looks like it's bypassing the verify certificate chain. See if we can get some how-to documents in here. See if it's bypassing SSL for those kind of things as well. If we searched here, for example, I can go to like the category fabrics there, or I can just search for it in the search bar, and we can see like our Frida instrumentation there as well. So like if we're looking for fabrics, this is something that I kind of do in the next videos as well. You can see the fabrics and everything here, and just click through and you can see everything that Frida is doing in the back end here. And we can also go to the live API monitor here, and this will actually allow us to see data that is being called through the application. So if I click here, like this fabric here, to bring up the product, we should actually see some APIs going by. This would be like the Android APIs that are coming by. You can see like the crypto hashes, all the different types of functions that are being pulled from Android itself. The final part of MobSF dynamic analysis to know is that you can click this generate report button, and this will actually start aggregating everything that you've done here in the dynamic analyzer. It's also going to allow us to go to this new thing called the HTTP tools, where we'll be able to see some of the network calls that were made by the application. So it's going to take a second to generate this report. And here we can see we have like the API monitor view, Frida logs view, again similar stuff to what we saw before, and we can actually take a look through this report as well. You can see some stuff here for SQL-like databases, tons of information in there, and also any screenshots that you took would be here as well. And you can see all the different types of places it's going here with the server locations. It also has the domain malware check, so kind of a mix of like the screenshots and everything that you've taken, and the static analysis as well. The other nice new tool that's here is this start HTTP HTTP tool. So I can actually click this and it will show me some of the network traffic that was generated by Joanne Fabric's app. I'm just going to open up here my emulator and should start loading. Okay, and here we can actually see a bunch of the traffic that was captured. And the other cool thing is that you can just click this, right, and it will show you like all the requests that were made. And you can look here on the request and response, and you can actually edit some of the stuff as well. And then if you have a API of interest or some kind of a network call of interest, like say for example this post request was interesting to me, you can actually click this send to fuzzer button, and if you have Burp Suite set up on say port 8080 or whatever port you have Burp Suite set up, you can actually send this to the fuzzer as well, and you can click repeat requests and it will send it to your fuzzer. So it'll send it to Burp Suite or WhatsApp, whatever you have as an additional proxy tool as well. I'm not going to show that here in this video because it'll make it a bit too long, but this is pretty much all the things that you can do with the dynamic analysis in MobSF. There's also other features as well that I did not cover, like when you go back here and you start the dynamic analysis, there's a few more checkboxes and different Frida scripts and things like that that you can run as well. So go ahead and take a look at the MobSF documentation if you're interested in those additional features.